Haitians Haitians are always in a bad situation. Something bad is always happening to Haitians. Um, Back in 2010, there was like a catastrophic earthquake in Haiti. It was very catastrophic. It killed thousands of people. Um, it ruined thousands of homes and tore down the earthquake in Haiti in 2010, tore down thousands of um, buildings, and it just distracted Haiti. It was horrible. It was all over the news. And this year in 2021, this year in 2021, the Haitian president got assassinated. It was kind of a shock to me because especially nowadays, you rarely hear about something catastrophic happening to a president of a nation. Like that's kind of like you heard about it with like John F. Kennedy and stuff, but nowadays, like it's kind of a shock to hear about a president getting killed. But it happened with the Haitian president earlier this year. Then, you know, this year also, another earthquake hit Haiti in this year, 2021. It was catastrophic. It killed a lot of people. It ruined a lot of it tore down a whole lot of buildings, and Haiti is in a messed up position. And just earlier this week, thousands of Haitians are being deported back to Haiti from Texas. They're getting flown back to Haiti from Texas. A lot of Haitians were like standing on the Texas border or something like that, and they're getting deported back to Haiti. I mean, we're always hearing some crazy bad news about Haiti and Haitians. And like another thing that's interesting about Haiti was like one of the first nations, if not the first nation, to gain its independence from a European country. Haiti was colonized by France, and Haiti, they fought the French, and they won the battle against the French, in Haiti, and they gained their independence from France. Haiti was one of the first countries, if not the first country, to gain its independence from a European colonizer. And you would have thought that since Haiti was like the first nation to gain its independence from a European colonizer, that they'll be much further ahead by now. You would think that since Haiti was one of the first nations to gain its independence, that they will be much further right now. But instead, they're still living in poverty. They're still backwards. They're still very poor. They still lack infrastructure. Haiti is messed up. And it's crazy. Haiti Haiti is on the same land. Haiti is on the same literal physical land as the Dominican Republic. Haiti, they call that land the island that Haiti and the Dominican Republic are on. That island I think it's called Hispaniola. Haiti is right next to the Dominican Republic, but nothing bad ever happens in the Dominican Republic. to Dominicans. It's always the Haitians who get the trouble, never the Dominicans. And that's crazy. They lie on the same land. They're on the same land. They're bordering countries, but the bullshit always happens to the Haitians, not the Dominicans. And it really intrigues me. It really intrigues me. I know Haitian culture to an extent. I know Haitians, they practice, not all of them, a lot of them have a tradition of practicing voodoo, witchcraft. Voodoo comes from West Africa. You have to know, yeah, Haitians are black, they're of African descent. So Haitians carried that tradition from West Africa to the island of Haiti, that voodoo practices. And there's mm, the Haitians use voodoo to gain their independence. They use voodoo and mixed in with warfare, to gain their independence from the French. But still, man, I think Haiti is under a curse. Haiti is under some type of curse. I mean, their situation is horrible. They're always in trouble. They always have an earthquake. Um, they're the first country to get their independence, but they're still in poverty. The president just got killed. I mean, Haiti is fucked up. And they're under a curse because of that voodoo shit, man. That voodoo shit has Haiti in deep waters. There's quote unquote good voodoo and there's quote unquote bad voodoo. But at the end of the day, it's all bad to me. It's all witchcraft. You know, Voodoo does not come from God. The true God, is the Hebrew God, Yahweh. You know, Voodoo is not a Hebrew tradition that comes from the Hebrew Israelite people. That shit is demonic at the end of the day. And if it doesn't come from God, it's no good. And we know voodoo doesn't come from the Hebrew God, Yahweh, because like the gods they worship. The voodoo gods, I forgot their names. But I think they're like several different voodoo gods who they worship, you know, and I forgot their names, but I looked up their names of these voodoo gods earlier today, and none of these guys' names are Yahweh. You know, Yahweh is the true God. There's only one God, but there's several voodoo gods. So that's how you know voodoo is not a good religion. You know, nothing should be worshipped besides Yahweh, the Hebrew Israelite God. You know, but Haitians, they're worshiping other gods besides the Most High Yahweh, the Hebrew God. And that's a sin. I think worshiping other gods besides Yahweh, the Hebrew God, is a sin. So Haitians, for hundreds of years, Haitians have been worshiping voodoo gods, false gods, and they've been basically disrespecting God because they're worshiping other gods besides Yahweh. And I think it's in the Ten Commandments that you shouldn't. It's in the Ten Commandments that you are not supposed to worship false gods other than Yahweh. You're not supposed to worship any god besides Yahweh, the true God, Yahweh. You know, it's called idolatry. Idolatry is a deadly sin. Haitians have been committing idolatry for hundreds of years, worshiping false gods, you know, and that's why a whole bunch of negative things always happens to Haiti and Haitians because they are breaking the laws and commandments. You know, they're worshiping false gods. They're committing a deadly sin of idolatry. That's why they're under a curse and bad things are always happening to them. The disrespect, that's the most disrespect to the Most High, is putting other gods before Him. And that's what Haitians have been doing for hundreds of years. That's why negative things always happen to them. They're not putting the real God of Yahweh first. Some people say his name is Yahweh. Some people say his name is Yahweh. But it's evident to me, man. Haiti, they do that voodoo shit, man. They need to stop it for real and get back to their Hebrew Israelite roots and worship Yahweh, the Most High, the Hebrew God. I'm going to read to you guys a Bible verse, you know, from the book of Exodus. It's chapter 20, the book of Exodus, chapter 20, verse 1 through 5. Okay. I am Jehovah, your God, who liberated you from your slavery in Egypt. You may worship no other God than me. You shall not make yourselves any idols, no images of animals, birds, or fish. You must never bow or worship in it any way, for I, the Lord your God, am very possessive. I will not share your affection with any other God. Ain't that some deep stuff? I'm gonna read it to you guys one more time, just so it can marinate in you guys' brains. Exodus chapter 20, verse 1 through 5. I am Jehovah your God, who liberated you from your slavery in Egypt. You may worship no other God than me. You shall not make yourself any idols, no images of animals, birds, or fish. You must never bow or worship in it in any way. For I, the Lord your God, am very possessive. I will not share your affection with any other God. You know, so Exodus chapter 20, verse 1 through 5 is basically saying that God doesn't want his people to worship any other God than him. It literally says, you may worship no other God than me. And voodoo is a religion that has other gods that they worship and idolize, you know. And I know I don't know too much about voodoo, but I think voodoo it it deals with a lot of images of like voodoo deals with a lot of like imagery and like I don't know exactly too much about voodoo, but I know it deals with a certain type of imagery and like they can put curses on people through several things, such as feathers and animal parts and all that weird shit. Voodoo deals with that shit, and it says right here, "You shall not make." In a Exodus chapter 20 verse 4, it says, "You shall not make yourself any idols, no images of animals, birds, or fish." Voodoo deals with images of animals, birds, and fish. You know, voodoo is a bad religion. It's against the Most High, and that's why they're under a curse. And as you know, Haitians are of West African descent. Hebrew Israelites. After when the Romans invaded Israel, the Israelites who were smart, you know, they scattered to mainland Africa before the Romans distracted everything. So, and the Israelites, they migrated from North Africa, eventually from North Africa to West Africa, and some years later, the West Africans who are originally Israelites were shipped off as slaves. So Haitians, many Haitians are bloodline Israelites, but they're worshiping false gods, and God is angry at them because of that. Yahweh is angry at Haitians because they're His chosen people, but they're choosing to worship other gods than Him. So Yahweh is allowing Satan to control and have dominion over Haiti and have a whole bunch of fucked up shit happen in Haiti. But all right, you guys, YouTube, peace.